Ladies and gentlemen, our warmest greetings to you. I hope you're all doing really, really well. Well, it seems that the spectacular motion forward continues. We've got an incredible guest, Trevor Grassi. Needs no introduction. A many storied gentleman of discovery, of spiritual elevation and education, and a force for truth, a force for clean, truthful information. And this is such a rare thing, such a breath of fresh air. Once you have this correct information, you make correct decisions. And that is the most valuable gift one can receive. So we are delighted to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here. Really appreciate it. Um, yeah, I guess I've got a lot of different things we could get into today, so I'm excited to finally talk with both of y'all. I've been telling Drago for years here we should do an interview, but never got it together until now, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. So, Trevor, let's start with the good stuff. Your creations. So you've got one there towards your right hand on the white cabinet. That thing, oh my God! As soon as we started, that bad boy started pulling me
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, this is a prototype for one of the I make all different types of coasters and charging plates and things utilizing this tensor ring technology. So this is one I made that actually levitates these two rings so you can spin them. You can even counter spin them. They're balanced just with magnets holding them up. And yeah, this is one of the ones I was working on a design for this. I don't have this available yet to buy, but yeah, these are called tensor rings. So these are twisted copper that are welded back onto themselves. And this came from a guy named Slim Sperling, who was he determined that it created an energy field when you flipped a wire back on itself and twist it onto itself. So what it does is it creates, depending on the specific diameter of the circle you use, which are based on the ancient cubits, not just the sacred or royal cubit that's the most famous from Egypt, but others as well. Like this is based on the royal cubit that you can determine from the Great Pyramid. This slightly larger one is called the empowerment cubit. And so it's a separate effect, but essentially, if you create these exactly to those specific lengths as the circumference, they generate this energy field and it kind of creates coherence within whatever you put in that field. So if it's spinning, it's going in all directions, but generally they have this energy coming out from one end or from both ends. And so if you put food or drinks inside that area, you can actually it will kind of charge it with life force. I've got a ring here. This is like the sacred cubit one. So yeah, it's a good thing to just start with because this is actually something that's fairly cheap. If you have the shop and you can make it, the materials are not that expensive. Just taking some wire. This is a 10 gauge copper wire, pure grounding wire. And so, yeah, it creates this field basically coming out from it, and you could put your drinks or something inside of it. It will charge them up. And yeah, it's because you're using the sacred cubit. This is what supposedly locks it into for the sacred cubit specifically 144 hertz frequency, whereas other ones are 177 or 188 hertz. So they utilize these beneficial frequencies that actually yeah, I would say it in a way of like it creates coherence within the cellular structure of whatever you're charging with it. So you can do drinks, or I'm doing an experiment right now with some apples where I'm going to see how I've got an image actually of some of them. One that I put this apple on it and forgot about it for like 6 weeks or months, I mean, and then came back and the one that was just the control was totally shriveled up and brown. And the one that was on the coaster like was way better and bigger. So I'm trying to do another one of those.
And that
Uh,
sounds like it's getting to almost like stasis technology where they would do this in these ancient sites to sustain the beings or on ship or something like that, where they would produce these frequencies to lock in the actual frequency of It's like to
Yeah.
prevent oxidation. You know what I'm saying? A locked in frequency. That's some amazing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I make some smaller ones. I just this is one of the newer designs I just came up with is a round version of an 8-inch plate with the seed of life with a bunch of the rings inside. So it's like you can just store whatever you want on top of here. And yeah, like you say, it's, everything in the ancient world was about frequencies, and even these rooms and chambers or structures are built to specific frequencies. And it's because of a relationship between the actual units that are harmonics of the actual size and shape of the planet, which give you these numbers. And when these numbers are used with those units, you end up kind of using this whole science, which is what I'm really all about trying to bring back and reconstruct. So this is one really great way that we can do that. And yeah, there's a lot of people getting into this now.
Yeah.
Since Slim Sperling kind of brought it back, it's becoming more known about and stuff. But it goes hand in hand with things like orgonite, which is this also has like metal filings, steel filings as the plate. And if you have a lot of surface area between an organic and inorganic substance, it creates orgonite, which is the word Wilhelm Reich came up with for it, meaning it has a similar effect. It can preserve living organic material and things like that. So yeah, this is something that's really I don't talk about much actually, so I'm glad you asked. But this is one thing that I take breaks from doing archaeological research and trips and stuff, and just work on this because it's for one thing, it's work I really love doing, but it's also a way of bringing some of that technology back to the world today.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting. And Wilhelm Reich, he
Absolutely.
was an absolute hero. He was a man who he was curing cancer. He was on the earlier end of all these people who we know, so many people have cured cancer in so many ways and they end up dead. Um, he was one of the originals who really, uh, I don't know, he was a good example to mention here because he came up with this idea. He would create orgone accumulators, which would gather this energy inside a chamber. You could actually sit inside, and people would do sessions sitting inside these chambers, and their tumors would dissolve and things like that. So eventually he was thrown in jail. His lab was burnt to the ground. Everything was confiscated and destroyed. And every book that he wrote about how to build it was also burned and destroyed and banned. And then he died in prison.
Wow.
So he's really a hero of mine, but you can't really come up with any logical reason why this would happen to him, aside from him obviously being targeted and taken out because of this technology. So yeah, it also kind of ties into a lot of this stuff we're seeing today with all these scientists disappearing and well, a lot's going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
The relationship between um, physical structure and resonant frequency. This seems to be universal. So
mhm,
first and foremost, this is not just limited to matter and energy, but it also applies to higher dimensions with relation to consciousness. And so a certain structure has a natural resonant frequency. You would see this in the, let's say, internal cavities of the pyramid. Some of these shafts are tuning elements where basically cutting them off or opening would change the resonance of the chamber. So it would give you that element of tuning. So it's not always 144 hertz, maybe it's 150, or maybe it's going a little bit down. So those tuning elements would allow you to play a little bit with this. So using
yeah,
sound, first and foremost, this is very ancient. And so
mhm,
we're rediscovering this. Going to
yeah,
present day technology, these are described as the Maxwell equations, governing the design of antenna or satellite dishes. Again, a certain length corresponds absolutely with a certain resonant frequency. So these are very well established, Trevor. And the
yeah,
suppression of this is, I think, is intentional. We
mhm,
keep rediscovering because it is human nature. These are the
yeah,
laws of the universe. And so one discovers, they suppress it. Another discovers, they suppress it. I think we're reaching that time in human history where these suppression methods are no longer going to stick.
Hmm.
Once and for all, we're going to rediscover more than we knew in the ancient days.
Yeah.
Uh,
And Pythagoras was even doing this. He was bowing strings, he was ringing bells, he was using sound for healing. So we know it goes at least back to him, but we see it going much further back in ancient Egypt. There are a couple temples in particular that have actually sound healing hospitals, including Kam Ombo, the Sobek temple, the Crocodile temple. This is also doubles as a sound healing hospital, and you can go into all these resonant chambers that have different frequencies depending on your illness. Or at Saqqara, there's a very there's one with like 11 chambers on each side, like 22 of them that are each different. Some of them you can stick your head in and just you can hum, and if you find any resonance that hits the specific one of that little niche, it will just ring like crazy. There's even some you can stick your head in without making any sound. You hear this like rumbling vibration of the earth almost, um, which is really amazing. But actually, I went on my last trip. I got back like a month ago from my first actual tour, which was amazing with Chris Dunn and the Coffer Project, Mohammed Ibrahim. And we did an add-on trip down to Amarna, which is where Akhenaten was from, and all the Akhenaten stuff. We went to what's called the Royal Tombs there, and there's one chamber where you go almost down to the very last chamber. There's one shaft. It's maybe like, I don't know, 12, 15 feet squared, but going straight down. It had a dirt floor. We couldn't see how far it went down, but you walk through on this wood platform, and it was the same thing. When you walked into the center of that room, it sounded like a jumbo jet was flying over. It had this rumbling, just like constant vibration that was really wild. I got some footage of it because I'm not sure if the sound came out, but it's like a jet's going overhead. It's wild. So yeah, it's there's a lot of the um, understanding of resonant frequencies that comes from as an effect of this entire science that's based on these units, the meter, foot, and the cubit, which all three were used in ancient Egypt. And I'm working on getting out more proof of that to establish that because it's very important. And then the numbers that you use with those units, they end up making these structures resonate in specific ways that are harmonic to the earth. Actually, this this book right here is another one that's similar to that. This guy, George Lakovsky, who is a Russian, he wrote this book, The Secret of Life, and he was bringing this technology back in his own way, much like Wilhelm Reich. He created what's called the multi-wave oscillator, which is just like this device that Nikola Tesla had built also, except Tesla had built one with like just it would send one healing frequency up through the body. He made one that had multiple healing frequencies all at once, and he'd sit between these two coils. And again, he was knocking cancer out. He was, destroying leukemia cells, things like that. And it's all non-invasive waves going through the body, not targeting the healthy cells. So, yeah, this is all part of the science that I want to help bring back, not just studying the ancient past, but actually bringing back to life a system of energy and medicine that could replace hospitals on the world. The way these pyramids work, the future of hospitals could just be pyramids, I think.
It's really interesting that you say this. Looking at the pyramids in Mexico, exactly what you said is also reflected there, especially in some of the smaller structures, not the big touristy ones. You see, they've
Hmm.
got these little chambers, very steep steps, but then they've got these more gentle slopes at the side, as if it was designed for elderly access.
Mm.
And then inside the resonant chamber, resonant cavity, these seem to first pull energy from the earth. So whatever you can do as a healer or a psionic being is drastically amplified.
Mm.
So you've got the energy of the earth, the amplification of the healer himself or herself, and then a number of these chambers. So this was a regular thing not too long ago, perhaps
Mm.
500 years ago, 600 years ago. before the Europeans came and called them savages and massacred a whole lot of them.
Mhm.
So these were enlightened people. You see, if left to our own devices, we're going to rediscover all of it. You're right now on the brink, tweaking with the components of something much more complex. So the counter-rotating tensor rings, I haven't seen that in a very long time. Let's say
Mhm.
ancient times. So these are being rediscovered. There's no two ways about it. The thing that's going to be the difference this time is no more extinction events. No more ice age, no more volcanoes, no more floods, no more diseases. It's done. And so we have at this time surpassed what the Atlanteans knew. We just crossed that threshold. And so this is a very exciting time in the history, the long history of our species, with some of the discoveries using ground penetrating radar, Felipe, the surface Laplacian source estimation. I use the same thing, but using brain signals. The mathematics are solid. And
Yeah.
so Felipe has the limitation of not being able to dig a few miles down. With brain signals, if signals are understood correctly, the machine that you would create would work. So it's absolutely solid scientific approach.
Mhm.
It's a really amazing time to be alive. These new things
Yeah.
rediscovered.
Yeah, I think, yeah, what's up?
I was just thinking like all these new technologies, we are rediscovering them. A lot of them we've had them in other past epochs and other civilizations, other planets, and like
Yeah,
everything's been covered up to the point where everybody thought in the past we were dumber than we are now, but we were already at a state of certain level of spiritual evolution and technological evolution that surpassed what we have now. And if Amir just said we're just hitting that threshold now, that means we were where Atlantis was before they fell.
yeah,
Because they were at the height of all their technologies. Even with QHHT, I've discovered through all these past life regressions, the Dolores Cannon work, Edgar Casey work, which you talk about a lot in your own work. It's
Mhm.
all talking about the same stuff. So it's like Nikola Tesla. He would often talk about these would just come to him, and he was realizing that this information was being channeled, and he was bringing all this forward to reawaken everything.
yeah,
And a lot of these technologies he'd already discovered in the 1800s, and then the Rothschilds got involved with it, and like it just they're putting us back into the dark ages that destroyed Atlantis, you
yeah,
know?
Oh, yeah. He Tesla rediscovered so much of this, I believe, and he also came to understand that it was something that was known in the past. I think when he started building his towers like Wardenclyffe, he was working on the same principle. And like Amir was saying as well, I'll show this is like one of the models that shows kind of the Earth grid. This is like a paper one I got, but when you're focusing these sites on these points on the grid, you end up like Giza's right on this one. You end up tapping into this natural energy field that can heal you. And if you're putting a pyramid onto it, then you're also amplifying that ability to use that healing power, where you're also tethered into the Earth's own energy that's actually charging people with life force energy in a sense. Um, and yeah, um, there's a couple things you just mentioned that ring true. I'm kind of losing some of the thoughts I don't remember, but yeah, it is something that I think they had and put into these time capsules at the very end or height of the Atlantean Golden Age civilization. I think what they did was they wrote everything down, they made copies of it, and they stored it at these specific locations that
mhm,
happen to be on these points on the Earth grid, like Giza, like in Mexico. We could get into Mexico. We could get into Guatemala today. There's more to do with Edgar Casey, actually, that I'd love to talk about. Because Casey was, he was tapping into the Akashic field, the Akashic record. It was the same thing. Yeah, like Tesla had said, there is a source from which all information comes in this universe, and I'm able to tap into some of this information, but I have not yet understood what this source is. Or I forget his exact quote he had about that, but you could tell he was tapping into this connection to the Akashic record. I think a lot of these words and terms we have are teetering around the very same principle, like
Yes.
that there is a mind and memory of the universe that can be accessed and tapped into. And if
Yeah.
you can see that, you can actually revert back in time or even forward or see anywhere in the world. So, a few of the things you've just said, Drago, actually are right on point in what I want to get into today, if we can, about um, that this information, that let's say the Hall of Records, this is what I'm all about, is discovering this ancient science, whether it's through direct written records inscribed on tablets or on walls and stone, or knowledge that was, somehow stored directly into crystals like quartz that can hold and retain information. Um, or in some cases, like I'm talking about as well, you can just directly reverse engineer it from what's open in plain sight, from the dimensions and size of the pyramids. You can actually extract the information and the units and the distances and measures, like I'm talking about. So there's a few ways that we can work to recover this knowledge, and I like to work on both fronts: decrypting the knowledge from the monuments themselves that are already here for us to study, and also working to try and get these excavations. So yeah, it's between remote sensing and remote viewing. These are two ways we can actually project our consciousness down and observe things with some degree of accuracy. And I get into that. I'm actually very, very supportive of the idea of using psychic elements and astral projection or remote viewing to look into these things, even if it's not going to give us definitive, absolute proof of what's there, but just helping to see what could be there. Um, I did one video about remote viewing Hawara where I gave Tony Rodriguez these coordinates, and he showed all of his students, had them all remote view Hawara, which is where there's the lost labyrinth underground, this huge structure I've been working on trying to get um, more attention on recently. And yeah, also looking into remote sensing is the other term that I often switch both remote viewing and remote sensing. I get them confused sometimes, but remote sensing is any form of technology that can actually, like an X-ray, peer through solid matter, look down into the ground, look for voids. So yeah, I've been trying to work on both avenues of seeing things, um, and some other even. I was working with Veda Austin, and she's working with these young autistic nonverbal children who are very clairvoyant and very tapped into this source, this mind and memory of the universe, the Akasha. And they're telling me incredible things because I was discussing with her how water relates to this ancient technology, and having them actually react to what I was saying, and they were giving me all these insights on this webinar that Veda had done recently. And then it's leading to potentially getting to work with these children more directly, because some of them are really interested in the archaeology, and they really want to get into these projects that I'm working on, where, it's been incorporated before. I was working with uh, well, William Brown's wife. William Brown is who I've been working on at Giza a lot with, a good friend, and his wife would do dowsing and psychically, like, looking around the energy of Giza, for instance, and Hawara as well. She actually was given a an award from the dean of archaeology at the Cairo University, because so many times she just detected these subtle energies underground, and then when they bring the GPR equipment, ground penetrating radar, they would find these chambers at all these spots. So for the people that are still, like, in disbelief about various psychic phenomena, telepathy, and all these different things, well, we have so much evidence that
Yeah.
this is something that can really move archaeology forward a lot and help us to pinpoint where these ancient records are stored and things like that. So I'm all about utilizing those methods as well to help us get more information about what's going on. and got a few programs coming up to hopefully be working on that more.
Wow, that's
Um,
incredible. So to be perfectly honest, disclosure is not about what is out there. Disclosure is about remembering the mighty human and what we are. That you don't need to have a technology. We are the technology. And
mhm.
so this universal or even greater than a single universe, this cosmic stream of knowledge is eternal, independent of humanity existing or not existing, and that we have the ability to tap into it. All memory of consciousness. The Atlanteans and Egyptians called this the halls of Amenti. Now we're calling it the Akashic Records. The Sufi call it the divine library of life. Now, the beautiful thing is that this is our birthright. As a human being, we have the energetic and spiritual hardware to tap into this. First, we require healing because we are traumatized. A traumatized heart cannot access it. A traumatized divine feminine cannot understand. A traumatized divine masculine cannot manifest. So there is a process of healing. Now, this happens through meditation. And there are many, many established systems that absolutely guarantee this. Everyone can do it. Now, Trevor, if you see some individuals that are more able to do so, this indicates they've done the work in past incarnations. They've kept the gifts, but it's never too late. And so that is disclosure, not about UFOs flying around, because 99.9% of them are man made anyway. A ninth dimensional species doesn't need to get an Uber to come to Earth. They are interdimensional. So, focusing on the mighty human, a lot of what you are putting together, you've worked with before in its mature and functional form. And now in this body, you're remembering. So this is so
Yeah.
cool that you're speaking about this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because obviously this is what these control structures on the planet are understanding themselves, and they want to continuously keep everyone in a traumatized state, which is why we have all this negative news all the time and things like that. And you're so right about that. You can't start, without your foundation chakra. You can't, getting out of a survival mode is what you allows you to build up more confidence in yourself and more understanding of your own power. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to disclosure, you've got, yeah, UFOs and ETs. That's a big one for sure. And that's been super protected. But I think even beyond that, there's this level of Atlantis connection for one thing, and what was really known in the past and how that actually connects to the modern world too, which we could definitely talk about some of that, how when you've got Hillary Clinton writing emails about the Nephilim and where they're buried, and the fact that Epstein's Island is literally in Atlantis, in a part of what was Atlantis, and they're out there with Maxwell looking for Atlantis under the water and stuff. Um, you start to realize that there are connections to this modern cult that's trying to keep people in this deceived state and this false reality or false kind of understanding of our own history. Then you start to realize this is a very old thing that's been here on Earth with us the whole time, and that it's all about targeting our third eye and our ability to open up. Like I say, you have the UFOs and then Atlantis, but the highest thing that they really don't want disclosed is humanity learning their own power, what's inside their brain, because this is the technology that has you have the whole hall of records in your
Yeah,
head.
yeah,
And when it gets to that point of where, opening these records under Giza, for instance, and other places, will start to kind of activate people's own minds and memories. And this is what I think part of the real purpose of Egypt is to help do that. Sometimes I call that like a bridge through time is
yeah,
Egypt, because you have these things that you could be back in ancient times looking at this temple and seeing this wall with this art on it, and then thousands of years later in your present incarnation you see that again. It can trigger your remembrance of who you are, of all of the knowledge and skills that your soul has that you don't use in this lifetime except subconsciously because you've got them. But you might think like certain things you're into in this lifetime might relate that you'd already had lifetimes experiencing similar things or training in those things. But I believe that the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, the actual process you're going through, it's doing something not to your body or ego, but to your soul. And if you go through the full initiations, it's a school of enlightenment. It's meant to show you how to activate this stuff within yourself and turn on this connection that taps you into the universal mind. So, if you went through the initiations, I believe in ancient times, then that gives you a more of a chance to actually remember that in current incarnations. So if you were initiate back then, and then you go to Egypt today and you lie down in the king's chamber, it's definitely gonna activate certain things that are already in you.
You're giving me goosebumps all over. Oh my
Awesome.
God, you're blowing my mind, Trevor. This is so good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
would you perhaps agree there is something to physically going to the location? It makes an enormous difference. So do you think this would be true?
Yeah, sure. Um, I mentioned my dear friend and teacher, John Anthony West. He would always say this line in his interviews. He'd go, Egypt is like sex. And then he'd be like, now that I have your attention, how is it like sex? And he'd say, well, because you can see the pictures, you can even watch videos, you can read all about it, but until you experience it, you'll have no idea what is actually there. And so this was his tagline. Then he would promote his tours after that and say, come with me. And because he gave some of the most sought after tours of all of Egypt. And he told us so much about this stuff, especially bringing attention to R.A. Schwaller de Lubix, who really went deep into this, what he called the sacred science, and showing that what's really going on is what we might call sacred architecture, which was revived in the, cathedral builders of Europe in medieval times. They were playing back on these harmonics, these measurements, and the specific architecture that ends up creating an effect on human consciousness or any consciousness, any living being that's literally inside that temple, whether they understand what's happening or not, they're being transformed just by being there. It's actually the vibration of the stones, um, all the math and geometry that you're actually taking in automatically, even on a subconscious level. It's actually a science designed to lift you into a higher state of consciousness just by being there. So you're absolutely 100% right on it. That's another thing we see today. You go to a shopping mall, all our buildings are big boxes and they're very ugly and they're soulless and they're designed to more drain you of your energy than like stimulate a flow of energy within your chakra system. And this, yeah, the chakras as well. These are tied to tensor rings. Also, what they can do is not only help with physical health, but like I said, my friend William Brown, he also works with tensor rings, and he makes these beds you can lie down in, where you're inside them, and you have one ring going over each chakra. And these are things that actually help pull you towards your soul. Essentially, it helps you to meet your own true self. And just like you said, like Jesus said, Yeshua, he said, you can do all these things that I'm doing and more. And Edgar Casey said that too, but Casey was proof of it.
Yes, 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 indeed.
And yeah, I mean, I would even mention Dorothy Eady as well. She remembered her past life as Om Seti, and she ended up going by Om Seti, the name, when she was living with King Seti the First at Abydos. And she's such a great example of that because when she remembered her past life, she went back to Abydos, where the Osirian is, this very important temple in Egypt, and she started pointing like, here's this thing, here's that thing, there's a well here, there's another structure over here. And the archaeologists started digging and they found exactly what she said.
Wow.
So she's one of these untouchable proofs that this kind of thing is real, that people
Yeah.
do remember. And actually, it's a pretty good way to find some things when
Yes.
people do.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Drago is a master QHHT practitioner. So one of the things that makes QHHT stand above and beyond any sort of, let's say, reading, Akashic record reading that a third party would do, is that the person remembers. They remember. And it's so vivid. The proof is in the pudding. That's kind of like that thing that you see that cannot be unseen.
Hmm.
You break through and you touch that ancient past and the greater truth, and that sets you on your journey. That's why these approaches, like the QHHT, are so powerful. The person knows the truth, resonates with them so powerfully. There's no
Yeah.
denying it.
You
Yeah.
know, that's why I love about QHHT, because imagine having the ability to ask unlimited questions about any subject you ever wanted to discover. If you suddenly realize that you put a client under and they're in a lifetime in Atlantis, that's when my nerd starts kicking in. I'm going to be like an investigator, deep diver, interrogator. We go deep. We discover what the truth is. What is the current religions? What is the governmental structures? What are they worshiping? Is it male or female worship? Did they get rid of the goddesses yet? So like Amir's right. Like when I do a consult on somebody, and let's say you can't come to me yet for like a QHHT session in person, I'll recommend Amir immediately to get them those answers immediately. If there's a constriction of time or space, they can't afford to fly across the United States to come see me or something like that, I'll have Amir have them, he will view all this stuff for them. So when they have this QHHT session, now I have all these crumbs I can follow of stuff I would have never discovered because it's remote viewing. We was talking about it earlier. We've had all these discussions behind the scenes in the remote viewing context where this is the next level of society. We have to merge remote viewing and QHHT into the world. We need to do scientific studies showing these are real. Put them in the science books. Start showing people that Amir likes to call us the mighty humans. The biggest discovery is us. There's so many threads I wanted to talk about earlier, like Trevor, you mentioned like the Atlantean symbolism and the Epstein stuff, and that's part of Atlantis. Yeah, the colors of the Anunnaki is blue and white. A lot of the statues on the islands around there, Will Smith owns some. A bunch of major people, Richard Branson of Virgin owns some of those islands, and it's nothing but Anunnaki Atlantean symbolism. Lots of Poseidon, worship of Enki. All over Epstein Island is worship of Enki. So yeah, I believe everybody's been talking about that there's like a base under Epstein Island. And I believe these are ancient. This is ancient. This is like they're rediscovering stuff that was there. And
Yep,
islands like that were owned by the direct descendants of the Anunnaki and priests. And these
yep,
were not accessible to the public. These sites were off limits.
yep,
But yeah, man, QHHT discovering the truth of Lyra, the truth of my origins, like God dang, man, if you ever want to become a healer, if you ever want to help people, man, if you want to make your archaeology better, if you want to make your discoveries better, get into QHHT, learn past life regression, learn Akashic record reading and remote viewing. Because doing those two things, you will discover everything yourself. You don't need people telling you answers anymore. You're getting it yourself. You're seeing it yourself. So when I open the third eye of a client, when they're on a couch across from me, they're about to go on a journey. And just like Amir said, they go there, they remember it, they are in that body, they can discover and describe everything, and it is intense. So I just wanted to throw that in because like these are very magical realms. The realms of me and Amir and what we can see and what we can do for people, man. We have to light more fires. We have to get more people doing this around the world because if we don't inspire people to do this, we're not going to hit this threshold of awakening. We have to have people that are doing something versus of just contributing their mouth.
yeah,
QHHT remote viewing, that's contributing because
yeah,
if you take Amir Trevor to an ancient site, he can help you locate stuff that the SAR is going to see, that the LIDAR is going to see, the ground penetrating radar is going to see. And that's what we see in South America with Sean Bond and stuff. Like,
yeah, yeah,
we are the technology. That's it. We are the most important beings in the cosmos because we've been hybridized so much that the other beings around the galaxy talk about us. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, if I may, sorry, Trevor, for interrupting you. There's something I feel now the need to say. Um, Earth has a major role in our levels of consciousness. As our gracious mother, she started off as a seventh dimensional planet. Now she's down to 3.5, slowly healing. Now, part of this suppression of Earth occurred on these sacred sites, like both of you gentlemen mentioned. They're spotted all over the Earth. And the method of suppression was through large scale trauma, usually human sacrifice of great numbers. So, wherever you see a large amount of death, torture, and destruction, this is to keep these sacred sites suppressed. And so, if anybody is hearing us now, listening to this podcast, the greatest thing that you can do to uplift humanity is to send healing towards these locations, both to the humans that suffered trauma, but also to those nodes in the earth, the guardian crystals that make those spots special. So these crystals connect together and they form the original dragon grid lines, like the model of Earth that Trevor just showed. And you see this type of bloodshed occurs whenever the consciousness of the collective is to be suppressed. And so
Mhm.
now, giving that out, now we know how to fight back in a non-violent way, in a civilized and integral way. So sending healing to the victims of Epstein Island. May the divine source bless you, beloved souls. We send you healing. May you find full healing and a complete life review. You see this happening in many, many of these sites where underneath the structure, there's lots of human skulls. This even in churches like Notre Dame. This is not accidental. So these sacred locations have been suppressed through bloodshed. And this is very much so the act of the Draco Anunnaki Empire. So
Mhm.
these Epstein MRFers, they're a syndicate. They're not a problem of one race or one religion or one country. This is the control system, and it's kind of in your face right now. We know who they are. So, our way forward is through transmutation of trauma using love and divine light. This is not some hippie unicorn and rainbow nonsense. No, this is the most powerful thing that we have at our disposal. Because if you go down, well, let's say it the way it is, if you wrestle with the pig, you get covered in doo doo, and the pig will love it. In terms of brutality, we cannot match them. What separates us is our enlightenment and our ability to transmute. So
Mhm.
that's my spiel. Sorry for just going on a little rant there.
Yeah. Actually, could I pause for 1 second and run to the bathroom and then
Absolutely.
answer that? Because there's a lot there. I just wrote down a couple notes. So I didn't forget. I'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back. So let's see what you've got for us.
Yeah, there's so much in what you both just said that I just took a couple one-word notes here. And I don't know, starting with what you just said, Amir, about trauma and how trauma can prevent people from activating these higher senses and higher awareness within themselves, activating the chakra system, opening the third eye. That's so true. And it's something that you know, I don't know, I like the idea of just getting into some of this stuff because I'm always talking about other projects, but rarely really get into the physics of enlightenment, the biology, and the chakra system and things like this, which is so important. And I think there are people are personally traumatized by just living in this world, but we also have collective levels of trauma. And so with things like JFK getting assassinated, for instance, this is something that traumatized the whole country. That's a
Yeah.
national trauma all Americans share. And then we have things that are like world traumas, the burning of Alexandria, or things
Yeah.
that that we all share these things that traumatize us to various degrees. And I think it's hard to really bring about a full level of self-awareness on an individual level if we don't have one on a collective level, and we're missing so much of the memory of who we truly are and where we came from. This is what makes these record halls so important because they're going to tell us about the stars and they're going to tell us about other races that we've been in contact with and the greater cosmic community. It's going to tell us about that stuff and it's going to tell us about how to heal our bodies and create sustainable energy. But it's also going to teach us how to access this inner path to inner knowing and tapping into that field, which is it is so much like you say, humans are really special because we can access that. We're the type of computer that can actually access that hard drive. And there aren't so many biological organisms, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as my awareness of different races that are interacting on Earth and coming and going. A lot of them can't do that. Not like humans can. Like we have a very, very special gift
Mm,
for that.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, going back to Drago doing QHHT, I know this is a really effective method for tapping into that. And so I know that I've heard all kinds of great reviews from everyone who's worked with Drago on this. And I've never done it before. We talked about it, never actually did one myself. But at some point, maybe we can. I assume, though, that you've encountered a lot of people saying the same things like Edgar Casey did after he was doing all these remote viewing, like physical health healings and stuff. He started getting into actually doing regressive readings for people and going back in time, seeing who they were. And he was finding that they all lived in Atlantis and Egypt and was seeing their lives in those countries. So I'm sure as you've done a lot of readings now, right, Drago? You've been doing this for many years, so you've got quite a stockpile.
Yeah, I'm around 950 sessions since
Wow.
2018.
Wow.
That's consistent. And the sessions are hard, man. They're minimum 6 to 7 hours. So just imagine it's a deep dive
Yeah.
with everybody. And a lot of this stuff that Casey talked about was verified with QHHT. So like his readings were spot on. So David
Mhm.
Wilcock coined it the best. Source field investigations. You're just like, what do we call this? The source field.
Yeah,
We need to
yeah,
teach people to tap into it, and we can know everything about anything at any time, man. They can't hide it from us
yeah,
anymore.
absolutely. Really, that's hitting it on the head. I got that one right here too. This is the book that came to me like way back. And it's yeah, David Wilcock's Source Field Investigation, his first book. This thing is so full of amazing science. And this
I
also,
got his books there. I got David's books there. He signed to me as well.
yeah, nice. Yeah, this one came to me in such an interesting way, and it was before I'd ever heard of him before. And it's so sad. It's almost a week ago now, maybe
Yeah, yeah.
that he passed, and everyone's been
He was
talking
my number
about.
one guy for the longest time, dude. He woke me. He made so many bridges for me just with quantum physics, quantum mechanics, just the theory of everything with wisdom teachings before he was on Cosmic Disclosure. Like I miss that, David. That dude should
Yeah,
have been a professor, man. Like straight up, give him a
yeah.
world stage, give him a major university. That dude could have changed history, man.
Yeah, and
He
yet
really.
he was taken out. Yeah, he was sabotaged.
Mhm.
He's a fallen hero of humanity.
Mhm.
You know what he went through. This would break any human. And
Yeah, he
so,
was.
you know, he paid the price of educating people. Many blessings to him. More of his type are coming. So he's a
Mhm.
trailblazer.
Yeah.
Despite what went on in his personal life, the sabotage that he endured, the gentleman was the real deal. So we all honor him.
Yeah, I think that especially that first book, it changed my whole life because there's so much science in there and it's real modern day laboratory experiments and really good science that with all these huge bibliography at the end. And yeah, when I heard he had passed, I was really upset. I put a
Dude.
post out about this because I was like, this book is one of the most important ones that's ever ever been put out there. I mean, also it relates to Coral Castle, where Drago and I went a couple of years ago, actually together, and we were checking that out. He was one of the first people to put the Coral Castle of Edleed Scanlon right beside the Philadelphia experiment and the type of technology they were working with there, which I think was very, very close to what Edleed Scanlon was doing, and also putting that right next to Tibetan acoustic levitation. And I think putting those three things together, which he did in that book, and he was one of the first person I've ever seen do that. I think he essentially kind of really pinpointed exactly how these pyramids were built, how the stones were levitated to a level that I've never seen anyone else come close to. Really, actually getting into the science of levitation, how you can actually push these electrons of the atoms past the speed of light. They basically become a wave instead of a particle. And this is just normal quantum physics. Like, this is accepted understandings that energy can become matter, matter can become energy. And clearly, these ancient civilizations had what I refer to in my book, I call it the master technology, because I do believe there could have been geopolymers and softening agents and all these other techniques, but potentially later, or to try and mimic these effects that we see in the most ancient antediluvian megaliths. But originally back then, there was this technique that very clearly utilized vibration and frequency to actually alter the molecular structure of the stone and manipulate the density of the stone by actually turning part of its mass into energy. And then you could create basically a giant marshmallow out of this stone, drop it in a wall, and it'll squeeze up against the ones next to it perfectly and then reharden. So I think he was one of the first to actually put some of that together. And yeah, it's so sad. I mean, in this long list of this year's been rough. You know, our friend James Rink passing, which
Yeah,
was very, very
yeah,
interestingly timed right as the fifth final season of Stranger Things came out, which is a show about Montauk, of course, and he being a Montauk survivor.
yeah,
And you know, Eric Von Daniken and Nick
yeah,
Pope and these 12 different scientists that are all connected to Disclosure dying. Um, yeah, David's death is really, um, you know, a lot of people want to automatically just jump to, oh, it was faked. He's still alive at Cheyenne Mountain or something with all these other scientists. People definitely don't want to accept the possibility that he actually was pressured to that point to take his own life. And honestly, we still don't know everything about it, but we have, you know, a lot of information that's come out about it over the course of the past week seems to show that even if he did pull the trigger, we know that he was being targeted in so many
yeah,
ways,
yeah,
which is so sad that he's being pressured financially. Just, you know, surely people he loves were threatened, like so many ways where they can push people to that. And I wouldn't say it's impossible that it was staged and maybe he's in a witness protection thing. It's certainly possible based on how much we know, but you know, I don't know. It seems like there are so many ways that they can push people towards that. Or, you know, I was watching one of the film The Lost Souls of Montauk. I don't know if you guys saw that. That came out a year or two ago. 2023 is when they filmed this with James and Brian and a bunch of people were up in Montauk filming there. James ended up speaking to Preston Nichols about this, who's in charge of these Montauk experiments, and he said that it was likely that James had a suicide program built in to where, you know, when he gets to his mid 30s, 40, he's going to have someone just kind of jump into his body and kill themselves, and there's nothing he can do about it, and it'll look like it was him. So
It's called
there's,
Omega programming.
mhm. Like they could mind control you. They could write a program in and they could make you do it even if you don't want to do it. There's many ways like they could actually get him to pull the trigger. It's very sad, but
I have the exact same Omega programming in me. It's standard and certain assets. And I have a little soft spot for James because he's always been like my little brother in the programs. We were at Montauk together.
mm,
And I spoke at his last conference, and he was killed within 6 weeks of that. And when he was there, the last time I saw him, I looked him in the eyes and I knew that's the last time I would ever see him.
Mhm.
And I had to walk away knowing that because I know he was about to die. And I'm like, these people, they won't stop. This TIRAP program, that's the name of the classified project, is called the TIRAP. And that's for targeted individuals. And that's why we have to get a team of remote viewers officially looking for this stuff. Who's targeting us? We need to weaponize ourselves, get together, find lost kids, find what's happening with these scientists. No one's doing big projects like this. Everybody's just wanting to just do their own thing and no one's doing it together. And that's the problem. We need like just like Sean Bond says, he has the Psionic League. We need a league of people that sign up to uncover the truth and that will put their life on the line to do it. I'll die for this. I said this 1,000 times. If they kill me for this, it is what it is, man. It was worth it for me, no matter what, just to wake up as many people as I can. But if you're not willing to pay that price, man, that's not true soul evolution. I know it sucks to die and everything, but death itself is an illusion. You have to release that fear and just step into your truth and not have it hold you back. Most people in QHHT, they're not living their truth. They're not stepping forward into what they be doing because finances are holding them back, relationships are holding them back, families holding them back, and they just lie to themselves. And like, this is why I'm here. I have the power to wake people up. I show them how they were messing up in life and how they're being lazy and complacent and choosing the easy life versus evolving, facing the hard stuff. And just to end this really quick, you got to forgive people. That's it. Forgive people. That unlocks the higher energies like Amir was talking about. You can't access these higher timelines if you can't love yourself and forgive others. It keeps you locked in the lower two chakras. So, I mean, that's the secret to everything right there.
Yeah. Um, Accessing into these higher aspects of yourself and the higher realms, it's I think unconditional love is the key for you to actually acknowledging like, you know, that there is just one source, one life that we're all part of. It's something you can say, at a certain level in your path of discovery, but at a certain point you'll be given some experience that lets you actually know that we are
Yes,
one, all part of a single life, that we're all sharing and we're all one, really, at the core of it. And then
Literally.
having that compassion for every sentient being on this planet, every sentient being in the universe, they are all, it's, you see everything that lives as part of yourself, then you start working with the universe in a different way. You realize that nature has a plan for this. And if you are willing to help nature unfold this plan to actually bring this enlightenment, and these higher states of being to all living beings, then the universe starts working with you. You're actually an instrument in that orchestra playing something harmonious. And it's like yeah, it keeps coming back to the trauma thing too, because that's not that's not new. That's not a modern day thing. I want to kind of jump back to what you were saying about Epstein and all this information that's come out with that stuff. It's dark nights of the soul that are happening on a planetary level now. A
yes,
lot of us have been through, maybe multiple dark nights of the soul where
yeah,
your actual soul is tested, your intellect, you're psychologically tested, spiritually, emotionally, all those things, and you have to go through these trials to actually get this knowledge and understand something about the suffering, something about the disease that's here on this planet, this sickness that needs to be cured. You're not going to cure it without looking at it and being able to
yeah,
see the rot and the infectious,
yeah,
disgusting parts of what's there.
And no one wants to look.
No one wants to look at that. I don't blame them. I remember many, many years ago when I was starting to figure out about, the child, trafficking and abuses. This was long before Q or Trump or anything like that too. And that's, I have David Wilcock honestly to thank for a lot of that. He was one of the first people that was talking about that before it came out on a much wider scale. But um this trauma that comes to the whole world. Speaking of how it ties back to the ancient times, Epstein Island, yes, I think Atlantis itself was mostly concentrated in two areas between the Azores and the Caribbean. So I think Bimini and the Virgin Islands and the whole Caribbean is one major part of it. One of the mainlands that Casey called Poseidia, he called. And yeah, like the blue and white, the colors. You can look at the ancient Phoenician bathhouses, which look exactly like Epstein's temple on his island. And you start to realize that this, the world is starting to wake up to the scale of this thing, of this cult, and the severity of it and the size of it, but not the age of it quite yet. And
Yes.
that's going to be another thing that's also very traumatizing to the world, but it's also very important to look at and say that these people are the descendants of the pharaohs, which go back to the Anunnaki, to the gods, to the Shemsu Hor in Egypt, the companions of Horus, these beings that were considered the gods and their offspring hybrids with humanity, the Nephilim. These groups were holding a lot of the knowledge. They were helping humanity in sometimes, or some groups of them were, um, while others were kind of going against it and trying to take over the world and control everything. And a lot of those, families and bloodlines actually moved to Europe. They took the Library of Alexandria with them. They didn't destroy it. They took it to the Vatican, where we still see the Bishop Mitre hats and these elongated skull throwbacks. And they've been the same families ever since. These Rockefellers and Rothschilds, you still see they even have sometimes kind of longer
Literally
skull.
worshiping Yankee with those miter hats.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, it's all tied to the Anunnaki, to the Atlanteans, to the long skull race. Whichever, title you want to give these beings, we find their skulls all over the planet. We know that they were sharing very advanced wisdom with the world. And Edgar Casey called in Atlantis, he said when this high technology was there and it was misused by the population, the ones who were using this sorcery and black magic and kind of corrupting this power were known as the children of Belial, he called them. Whereas the good Atlanteans were called the children of the Law of One. And so this is also tied to what, Wilcock talks about the Law of One, which is a channeled text, from a few years ago where he lived with these people, which is kind of related, but maybe not. I don't know if I would say it is, but it's kind of working off of what Casey had called the Law of One. But anyway, Belial, this dark entity, which Rudolf Steiner in the Anthroposophy, he actually called it Ahriman, was another name for it. Basically Satan, basically like a satanic just culmination of all evil type of force that manifests in the human world in certain ways. And where Steiner was actually talking about it resurging into humanity, modern times into the world as this transhumanism and the AI and the evolution towards a digital, immortality, which now some of the AI guys are already signed up to you know, shift their brain into computer files and go in this path of this synthetic, as opposed to our divine ascension that's natural and meant to happen to us as we become more enlightened and we actually build a higher body within us that eventually is strong enough to move past this level of reality we're at and continue its mind and memory beyond a corporeal form without being forced to reincarnate, essentially. There is this path towards what we call ascension,
Yes.
which is what the Egyptians were after. They wanted their heart to be lighter than that feather, in the afterlife. And the whole goal was to move through this afterlife obstacle course called the Duat, where you have to go stage by stage and prove that you were just, that you treated people right, that you're very lighthearted, essentially. And they show actually many different places where your soul could end up. Reincarnation is just one of the many things that could happen to your soul. It could get essentially reused for parts and recycled into, um, being used in different ways, or you can make it all the way through to this state where you're essentially moving outside of the limitations of this 3D world.
Reality. Yeah.
So yeah, the Belial, jumping back to that quick, Belial, this dark entity that kind of corrupted these people within Atlantis, which is exactly what we're seeing today, is like, you know, these high technology being used for negative means and personal gain and things like that, service to self. Well, it's the same name. Bel is the same root as Beelzebub, Baal, the cult of Baal. That's what's, you know, still operating today, Bohemian Grove and these Baal being like often a cow type deity looking, or Moloch being more of an owl form, but a similar like Canaanite deities,
Yeah.
and which were openly worshipped, and you know, they both are associated with human sacrifice of children and babies. And so if you put that together, Belial, Beelzebub to Baal, this is the same cult. The same cult that took down Atlantis is the one that Epstein was working with. It's the same cult that's controlling the United Nations and upper levels of Freemasonry now, and things like that. Something woven into and corrupting into these mystery schools that have some really good stuff. Honestly, Freemasons and Templars and Rosicrucians hold on to so much really important information, but they've been infiltrated and corrupted by some of these very same cults. So it's, I don't know, it's a hard point to make, and it's even more traumatizing in a certain way. But when you acknowledge that this is the very same thing that happened back then, and you know, this is the time for us to do a better job and basically, you know,
Well,
restore a lot of this knowledge, bring it back.
well, gentlemen, let me shine a ray of light and hope on this traumatic truth which has been our history, our shared history as a species, incarnation after incarnation, same doo-doo, new day. Well, number one, many of these beings used the infiltrated reincarnation mechanism, meaning that as soon as the soul shard would leave the body, they would be able to occupy a new human vessel with all their memories. That is a great unfair advantage. And so this mechanism of reincarnation has now been liberated. No more sabotage in that way. Second major point of victory for the mighty human is the dismantling of the parasitic grids that were placed upon the organic dragon grid lines on Earth. Usually after 10 to 12,000 years, humanity would face an extinction event by design. And so when the guardians of the sacred locations, the shamans, the wisdom keepers, were wiped out, then these beings had an opportunity to tweak the technology. Many of the pyramids, for example, which were originally created for stabilization of the environment, preventing earthquakes, volcanoes, keeping the energy of the earth within a, let's say, livable range. These were infiltrated. Now, through the glorious work of so many that have been working on the grids, doing earth healing, the old parasitic grids are almost completely offline. Now, you spoke about the children of Beelzebub or Moloch, so the children of the shadow, let's call them. They had a very powerful wizard caste. And once the parasitic grids were fully laid out and brought online, not quite dissimilar to the ancient emperor of China who killed everybody who worked on his tomb. That was part of the instruction. They killed off these wizards, actually made sure that the soul shards were also destroyed. So now that these parasitic grids are taken offline, the knowledge of how they were created no longer exists. So once they are clear, they are clear. And number three, the beings responsible for perversion in not just the Atlantean and Lemurian civilizations, but far more ancient earth religions, perverting them into things like the abuse of voodoo. These were originally beautiful, they were not abusive or selfish. So these are mainly Anunnaki and Draco. The ones that are here now are far inferior to their ancestors that were brought to Earth between 500,000 years ago and 120,000 years. Last ones were the Anunnaki. They have become fat, dumb, and lazy. And so as humanity rises, they don't have the ability to re-enslave us. So with minimal effort, and I really mean minimum, 3 months of meditation, you can break free from all this trauma. It is so upsetting once you see the picture. Oh my God, this was going on all along. Yes, my wonderful friends, this is true. But we can rise above it. As a result of being exposed to this hardship, we have become strong like diamonds. This is how diamonds are made, under heat and pressure. So there is no work lost, no time lost, no technology or wisdom lost. It is a blink of an eye. We'll rediscover it all again. Trevor, case in point, stuff that you're rediscovering. Edgar Casey, case in point. Many brilliant people. Our fallen brother, David, case in point. You see, this brilliance is built into us. The reason for the fall of the Draco and the Anunnaki is because they have lost connection to Source. We are connected to Source. There is nothing out of reach from us. And so now that the matrix is shutting down, what that means, there's no more extinction events. Look at us now, us three here, standing tall with bravery and compassion, saying that enough is enough. This is the future of humanity. And so we need to acknowledge what has been, but we are just getting started. We're going to find our place among the stars as teachers, as healers, as prophets for new species, sharing our wisdom. Hey, new baby species in a galaxy far, far away. This is human history. See what we went through, learn our wisdom. And so this is where we're going. The dark ages are over. And now you see this chaos in the world. This is the last bit of darkness. These assholes coming into full sight. This wasn't the case before. They managed secrecy. Through the light of truth, people see. And a healthy, normal human being will find that kind of behavior repellent, ugly. Our nature is our best defense, and connection to the source is the way forward. So that's my little explosion of light.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I think speaking of these dragon lines, these ancient, ley lines, we call them also, saying it's been dismantled, I would almost agree with that, but I might say it more like it's been darkened, because the grid still functions, but it's as if the energy of that entire network, this web around the planet of this energy that's literally moving through the crust of the earth between these sites, it's taken
If
on
I may
darker.
elaborate, the original grids are in place. The parasitic nodes are being dismantled. So the technology of the
Yeah.
invaders that were suppressing us is almost completely gone. So the organic grids are coming online. That means Earth is waking up and her immune system is coming online. You see, for a species to exist on Earth, Earth must welcome it. And so, like fleas on the back of the dog, these guys are going to be repelled.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the earth itself is sick of it, and it will purge. It will, it is a living object itself. I believe the earth has all the signs of being a living being, essentially. Like, it has an immune system. It has all these different climates and processes that are constantly working, and it will purge itself on its own to some extent. But it's tethered to the collective consciousness of humanity, the morphogenic field that all of our thoughts, all of our habits, all of our ideas are feeding into that field. and that field is connected to the ley line grids, and so it's connected to the pyramids that are built on them. And what's happened is you have even Hitler was moving his armies along these ley lines because they understood if you conquer these center points, they're tied to the spiritual, emotional, intellectual,
Yeah.
every aspect of all living beings and the
Yeah.
consciousness of everyone there. If you take over one of these nodes of the Earth's own energy where it's coming out at these locations, and you place on it something like the Giza pyramids that have the highest mathematics and
Yeah.
things like that, or Angkor Wat, where you have this beautiful art,
Yeah.
just covering miles and miles of
Yeah.
reliefs of incredible detailed sculpture and relief. Um, this is something that takes that energy through it. It's like a filter that's putting this beautiful energy on it, and it's radiating out to the whole region. It's going to give life to everyone. And so this is how these, it's not just giving, electromagnetic energy or things like that. It's giving fertility and direct chi, prana, like actual life force energy to sustain the entire ecosystem, not just some crops here or there, not just the human beings or even the animals, but everything is
Everything.
going to be enhanced by this energy. And if you say are using, these obelisks that are the same type of technology, let's say Washington, D.C. or the Vatican, where, they do, very dark rituals right underneath these obelisks. They do things that really darken the whole grid. And when they're doing black magic at sites like this, when they own the capital of the entire region and they're doing that type of thing, doesn't matter if you believe in black magic and
Right.
sorcery or not, they're still doing it and they're doing it very effectively.
Yeah.
But if you tie this in, and this comes back to a couple things you just said, because I was mentioning this webinar I did with Veda Austin and these amazing young autists.
Yeah.
They're we ended up talking. I talked a lot about Marcel Vogel and combining that with Veda Austin's technology and getting into these crystals, what quartz crystal can do, and why these obelisks are made of quartz, or made of the granite that's so high
Right.
in quartz.
Right.
The quartz is functioning as an interface between your consciousness and the actual stone, and that stone will store in
Yeah.
the quartz
Yeah.
all of this energy, be it a prayer or a blessing or a curse or something
Yeah.
dark. And so, like you said, we can actually, once we put together how this thing is working, you program the quartz, you program the crystal or the obelisk, it continues to use that energy. It holds it unless it's reprogrammed. And so if you have like water running through it, for instance, they're always on rivers and the water is coming under and being structured by the energy of that crystal.
Yeah.
You can reprogram it. You or I or any of us can send a loving energy to these obelisks and reprogram the crystals within them. And we can lighten the grid in that sense. Or if you go to Egypt and you sit in the sarcophagus, the box, I wouldn't call it sarcophagus, but that magical box in the King's Chamber, you can actually put love into it. You can put health and blessings for humanity for, millennia to come into this. And so we can literally remotely, just from our bedroom or living room, you can reprogram these objects that are actually tethered to what we could call the Gaian logos, the mind of Earth, which is tethered to the solar logos, which is
Yeah.
tethered to the galactic logos. This is how the microcosm can access all the way into the universal field of knowledge and intelligence and memory. And that's what's beautiful. If we get that grid glowing light white, and we clean the energy that is actually balancing the entire all living things on the planet, then we have a direct path for more people to directly connect in like Casey did. And it kind of brings me back towards Edgar Casey again, because he is the perfect example of what actually happens when you reach
Yeah.
this state and you can go anywhere, see anything, go back in time. And I do believe we're going to be finding these literal record halls that are telling us the history of Atlantis in these different spots that are stored where those energy nodes are, where the pyramids are. But also, as we start to see that history, the real confirmation is going to come from every individual who is now becoming an Edgar Casey themselves. And so we're going to have
Yes.
10% of the human population is going to be Edgar
Yeah.
Cayce's, well, then
Yeah.
anyone can go back to Atlantis and remember and see and recover this knowledge directly. So there's something where this technology and the discoveries and the consciousness of humanity are all tethered and they can ascend together.
Yeah.
So when we start discovering more things um, like what's going on at Giza right now, what's going on in Guatemala, this other project, maybe I can talk about a little bit, is also directly
Great.
related to Casey and what he told us was very important. Um, but yeah, with Giza, like we're saying with Filippo, he's just announced this morning. He put out a post about this second Sphinx he's looking at Giza, which is very exciting, saying he's going to share a lot more information about that June 21st when he's doing his next press conference in Italy. I'm going to try and go to that. I'm not sure if I can swing it yet, but hopefully I'm going to go there and we're going to, Frank actually, hopefully will be able to come too. Frank Rogla, who you guys just interviewed. And we're going to try and like get that conference translated into English as quick as possible and get it at that night. But yeah, maybe I can talk a little bit about Guatemala actually for a second, because that is one of the projects I haven't really mentioned too much, but it's really exciting. Um, Again, to do with Edgar Cayce, because for those who don't know, he was the one who really highlighted this hall of records underneath the Great Sphinx at Giza and said that this was some records that were brought from Atlantis around 12,500 years ago, placed there. They had all this information about the stars, about the human state, how to actually access these higher states of awareness and things and perception. And also um, just a lot of the history that we had lost about where the original Egyptians had come from, some of this stuff that's actually written on the walls of the Temple of Edfu,
Yeah.
the Temple of Horus, but a lot more detail about that. What he said, though, was that there were three halls of records on Earth that had identical contents. So exactly what is under the Sphinx is also in these two other locations, he said. And there's many more record halls than that, but these three, he said specifically, had identical records. One of them, he said, was on the bottom of the ocean now today, which I believe is probably the city that's off the coast of Cuba on the sunken on the ocean floor. But it could be some other. There's many submerged ruins between Bimini and Cuba in that area, and this is another thing that Ghislaine Maxwell was looking for with her submarine. We know she was like the pilot of the plane, but she also operated the submarine, and the submarine itself was called Atlantis. And some of those emails that were recently exposed actually talked about that she was looking for this city off the coast of
Yeah.
Cuba. But anyway, the third one was Piedras Negras, Guatemala. And in 1933, Casey was doing a reading for someone. He ended up saying, well, one of the other record halls was brought to Guatemala, to the Yucatan, by this character, this Atlantean man named Iltar. And he brought it there, set it up somewhere on the coast, and then there was further earth changes later on, and he had to move it further inland. So he brought it to this site called Piedras Negras, which is it's Casey basically said it's this one site in the Yucatan where the University of Pennsylvania is working right now. The only site that they were working at was Piedras Negras. So we basically have it absolutely known that this site is the one he is saying had the records just like the Sphinx. So I've been wanting to go there a very long time, and I just went just before my trip to Egypt. I got to go there with Marco Vigado, who's this amazing friend of mine who's done incredible work in Mexico. I did a whole interview with him called the Secret Underworld of Mitla in Mexico, because he's done GPR, electrical resistivity, magnetometry, all these different remote sensing projects. And he actually discovered at Mitla, which is in Mexico, this entire like underworld of the Zapotec kings that's been lost forever, and everyone's, it's just been a legend. And he found all the entrances to it. So he was really interested in going to Piedras Negras, and we finally put together this trip. And I think Frank mentioned it probably a couple weeks ago when you both talked to him about it somewhat, but he was more talking about Mexico. Went to Mexico after, and there's definitely some interesting stuff happening in Mexico too, which I might go back to next month. But trying to keep it on Guatemala for now because this is so exciting. Basically, we did a preliminary, we went out, camped there a couple nights, and just got to. This site is really remote. It's deep in the jungle. It's been pretty tricky to get there. There's like drug cartels, and
Mhm.
it's the border of Mexico and Guatemala, and so it's like a sketchy area to be on the river. Um, but yeah, we got to follow up on some of these leads that came from Greg and Laura Little, who were working with the Edgar Casey Foundation
Yeah.
maybe like 12, 13 years ago. They did a trip there. And we found several of these spots where there's air flowing out of these holes in the ground and spots where these different pyramids isolated through the jungle are all connected potentially by these tunnels. And we
Yeah.
basically know exactly where to bring the GPR equipment, and I think we can get permission to do that next time. So this is really huge because it's
Yes.
like potential, I've been working on the Sphinx at Giza and trying to get into these halls of records there for, I mean, literally for like 20 years since I first met John Anthony West. I've been wanting to do that, but obviously the ministry in Egypt makes this really difficult to get permissions for. So we
Yes.
now have potentially a way to
On
access
site.
what is the
Yes.
exact same records, only
Yeah.
in Guatemala. And I think it's much, much easier to do this and very cheap comparatively as well.
Hmm.
So this is so exciting.
Is the Guatemalan government supporting you? Because this could be, as you said, massive. It
Yeah,
would be good to get them on board. I think they'll be very agreeable.
yeah.
Um,
I think it looks very optimistic in terms of that, especially because Marco's got all these projects under his belt
yeah,
working
yeah,
with the
yeah,
INAH in Mexico. It's like the
yeah.
Ministry of Antiquities of Mexico,
Oh, yeah.
basically.
Wow.
They were working side by side with him on many of these projects,
Yeah.
actually. San Miguel, Ixtapan, a handful of sites, but especially Mitla was the big one where he actually
Oh,
said, "Let's get some GPR," and he found it. He found these scans. You can see all the voids. They're all under churches. Of course, they
wow.
would build the churches on top of the
Oh,
entrances
yes,
because.
yes. That's true with most ancient sites.
Mhm.
Um, so before the presence or emergence of Abrahamic religions, these sites were still sacred. These are undeniable. I mean, you go to the location. First of all, there's this mm, unbelievable natural beauty around it somehow. The presence of these guardian crystals, these are nodes in the grids. Nature becomes super beautiful. The energy is undeniable. So these sites have always been sacred. But even across, let's say, the west of Asia, the north of Africa, many of these old temples have turned into mosques. And across Europe, they have turned into churches or priories. But the sacredness of the site has never changed. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting. You mentioned that now there are churches built upon it. These places were forever sacred.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why they'll build the churches on them because they know you won't be able to do archaeological projects there later. It's
Yeah,
just kind of claiming it,
yeah.
claiming the entrance and keeping it secret. So this is exactly what my other friends working on the Chincana tunnels at Cusco in Peru, they're finding the same thing. The entrances are underneath some of these churches. They connect to the Coricancha and to other churches in Cusco. There are entrances underneath. Um, yeah, actually, in that case, one of the priests had said something about that they had these highly polished metals that they used as mirrors, and inside
Mhm.
the churches they had these like mirrors set up so they could reflect sunlight down into the temple, and it goes along following mirror to mirror through it. It ends up shining sunlight all the way up through the tunnel,
The whole thing.
all the way up
Wow.
to Sacsayhuaman. That's pretty cool too, yeah. Um, Could I actually pause one more time quick? I
Yes.
just drank a lot of coffee before.
Nope. So
Yeah.
welcome back.
Um, yeah, so this project in Guatemala is very exciting. We're also working on as Frank mentioned, some stuff in Mexico. I'm probably going to be going back there next month. Some of the things in Egypt are very exciting, though some of that stuff I'm like hesitant to talk about some parts of it, but like at Giza, there's all kinds of things going on. And then there's Hawara as well, like 90 kilometers south of there. The labyrinth is actually getting dug up now. The excavations are starting, which is really exciting. With my friend Louis Decordier has been setting up all this stuff and arranging it. But that's actually getting started. And that's I have a video called Hawara Rising about that, which is the only interview with Lewis that's out about these new discoveries there, where there's a 40-meter metallic object. I don't know if you've heard of this or followed this story already, but he just announced this in the last year. They detected from satellite this 40-meter metallic object in the center of what is described by historians as being like one of the greatest architectural achievements ever in the history of the world. A huge underground complex of like 3,000 chambers, according to Herodotus. And
Wow.
it's an extremely important hall of records, I believe. Like everything really
Yeah.
points to it being this archive of knowledge where, you have all these chambers so you can inscribe the text on the walls. Um, so that's one of the really big things we've been pushing for forever, and Lewis is just getting that to get started. Dr. Abbas and the NRAAG are last month when I was there, 2 months ago, I saw part of the team already digging in the sand and there was stones exposed, and
Wow.
it's so exciting with
Oh,
that.
wow.
And so it's yeah, at the center of this whole thing, there's a giant central atrium with this 40-meter metal object in there. And Timothy Akers, who had done this scan, he had said he had never detected any material signature like this before. So it's a
Mhm.
metal, but it's like a exotic metal,
Right.
basically.
Perhaps
It's
intact Vimana, some sort of a anti-gravity device. So, I mean, previous century, the greatest discovery would have been the unopened tomb of Tutankhamun.
mhm.
And now imagine 21st century, we're finding the Hall of Records. How magnificent would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, and I have some really exciting information that actually came from the Edgar Cayce Foundation about exactly where the Hall of Records at the Sphinx is. But I'm trying to get that out, but that's connected to the work I was doing with William Brown. Um, but there's so much else at Giza right now too. Between Sean Whitehead, who's working with Matt Bell, there is funding the work. He's just had approval to drill up into the large void above the Grand Gallery in the Great Pyramid, which he says is going to happen this year, at least within 2026. And also working on the Queen's Chamber southern shaft, where we know there's like some chambers kind of off in that direction that might even connect into there. But then you have, well, one of the biggest things just recently is the second Sphinx that was proposed by Damiano Perras, who's a friend of mine. He shared some of this research before my last trip, actually, and I was looking at. But Filippo scanned at this location that he had calculated would have this mirrored Sphinx on the other side of the plateau. Um, and then, yeah, it was a few weeks ago this came out, and Filippo said he was 80% sure that there was something there underneath this spoil heap of excavated material that's dumped there. And yeah, just this morning he had officially upped it to 100 or even 105% sure, he said, joking around, that he feels absolutely sure there is actually a second Sphinx there. Which up until now, it's just been theory. It's just been proposed. Nobody actually has claimed that there is a Sphinx there, but it's been kind of proposed as a hypothesis. But now Filippo is saying he actually has scans that are showing like the two front paws, the two back paws, the head. Like definitely it's a
Yeah.
Sphinx, he says. And so this is some of the information he's going to release June 21st in Bologna
Wow.
at this new press conference. And the press conference is what he's said by this summer he's going to be completely finished with Giza. So this will be the final chapter of Giza. He's going to show everything. He's shown some of these vertical structures
Yeah,
going
yeah,
down,
yeah,
but he's going to be showing horizontal connections between them underground
yeah.
and focusing on this second Sphinx.
Oof.
So, yeah, I might share some little clips from. I had a meeting with him just like a week ago with him
Yeah,
and Frank, our friend Frank Rogala, because Frank's been helping me work on this proposal for a project to try and get Filippo more processing power, essentially.
yes, yes. Oh
Um,
my God, that is the bottleneck, the
the bottleneck,
processing
exactly.
power. Oh my God, the
Yeah.
algorithms are there, but there's so much data. You need something with a little bit more horsepower, so to speak. So that's really good.
hmm Yeah, this is really the point where it's all kind of getting slowed down because he can only, yeah, he's spending 2 years just to do Giza, and we
Yeah,
want to move
yeah,
faster
yeah,
than that. We want to do
yeah,
multiple sites per year and start getting on some of the most important archaeological sites around the world, and specifically the ones that are most likely to have underground structures.
yeah,
So, yeah, if there's anything more exciting than him actually presenting the final full picture of Giza
yeah,
and
yeah,
including this imagery he's promising us of the second Sphinx itself, actually saying, no, I'm not just theorizing this anymore. We have photographic, like SAR imagery of the actual structure. It's got front paws, back paws, and a head.
yeah,
We're trying to get more detailed scans of the head to really see if it's a human face or a lion or what have you. But he says this is original, as if
yeah,
the
yeah.
ancient Egyptians weren't even aware it was there, as if it
This is
was
correct.
buried
You
like
just read
even
my
in
mind.
ancient
So
times.
we were talking about these sacred sites always been sacred, and so we've had many rise and falls in civilizations. The old Egyptian dynasty, the Atlanteans before them, and then the Lemurians before them. So these locations are really ancient. So for the past 50,000 years, humanity's been building stuff there. And so some of this stuff was ancient even to the Atlanteans, who then came in and structured the pyramids. So these sphinxes are perhaps the oldest structures there. And so you get the natural weathering. These are from ancient times when we had this level of rainfall that would cause that kind of erosion. And now the subterranean stuff, that is definitely very ancient. Old, old, old. So the scale of the architecture, it surpasses what the Atlanteans could do. It's from a time where our ancestors, they were living under different collective consciousness. So that which is now restricting us, they did not have. A lot of structures in the solar system that now seem eroded and ancient were built by the Lemurians. Now, these guys were truly incredible. So, rediscovering some of the subterranean stuff. Now, the good thing about it being buried is that it wasn't ravaged. Seems the further we come forward into recent history, the more brutal we became. Everything that was possible to lift up and move found its way to London or Paris. The
Mhm.
most impressive stuff. Some of it has just been permanently suppressed. So now these are human legacy. These are our inheritance. This is so exciting now coming to find them untouched by the
Mhm.
frickin' pirates and the barbarians, really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think you have to bury it underground. That's how it has to work. Really, because anything you're going to put on the surface, of course, it's not going to last thousands of
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
especially through a
yeah.
Kali Yuga, when
Oh,
people
yep,
are,
yep,
oh, let me get that gold,
yeah.
let me
Oh,
get that
yes, yes.
treasure. And you have these Kali Yuga mines even today that are,
Yeah, yeah,
heavily, I would say, infiltrated, but no, controlling, I would say, the ministry and the government. And so they're preventing a lot of this stuff from coming, but it's the people are starting to realize and put enough pressure on them to make it, well, we
Well,
have a case for excavation at this point. Like,
Trevor, I'm going to say this with a little bit of caution. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, after the First World War, the Islamic world needed to be suppressed. And so a new branch of Freemasonry was created called the Ikhwan al Muslimin, These are Masons. They control Egypt, they control Turkey, they control Qatar. So this is part of the suppression of the Islamic world. Now you see the old gentleman before the new gentleman after the coup and the change of regime. Everyone, they're cleaning of the house, and a figure like Mr. Hawass is part of the furniture. And so these are gatekeepers. I'm so happy that you're now branching into Guatemala. These degenerates do not exist there. You're going to find some really amazing stuff. And without the red tape, without people restricting you, without any logic or reason. You're on the right path, my dear friend.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, in Egypt, it's most difficult because that's where some of the most important stuff is.
Yeah.
And there are many ways to get, I mean, there are many different parts of Giza specifically that I've been focused on trying to get down into that we could access without hurting anything, without drilling or doing any damage whatsoever, just removing sand. There's so many places we can open up. And I think that's something that we can use Filippo's information to push for because,
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't particularly interested in the second Sphinx until, he really started telling me, no, this is really
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I'm seeing it already. Because it was just a theory and Damiano's theory was sound enough. It made sense, and it is a very important line connecting it from the regular Sphinx. But I had been focused more on the village in the east of the plateau where there's all these houses were just demolished and guest houses and stuff, where we know there's tunnels coming in from that way. We were also really focusing on, for one thing, the NC2 complex, which isn't far from where this second Sphinx is, but in the same kind of northwest corner of the plateau. The Osiris shaft as well, and a handful of different spots on the plateau. But now I'm pretty intrigued by this second Sphinx thing because if he's saying no, there's definitely one, we just have to dig down to it, remove sand only,
Yeah.
not even really digging, just clearing. I'm like, okay, that's great. The other thing Filippo and I have mostly been talking about is just clearing out some of these shafts of sand. They're full of sand, and we know that some of them connect all the way down into this deepest stuff we're talking like a kilometer down to 1,200 meters even. So some of those I'm going to work on trying to push for excavations to happen of those shafts so we can see what's on the bottom of them. And I think we've got a very solid case for it now. And proposing this, this is kind of the big, really exciting news here is what this comes down to is we're going to create a program that's like a partnership between the Archaeological Rescue Foundation is my nonprofit that we're working on all these different projects with to help with Guatemala and Mexico and Egypt and all over eventually. But working with that and Harmonic SAR, Filippo's company, we're going to partner up and create a system where we're going to try and like raise some funding so we can put a lot of money towards either doing one of two, basically getting Filippo some new computers right now that will triple or quadruple his capacity at least immediately, and he can scan a lot more, or also building a distributed network for anyone who has a computer so everyone can help
Yep.
on this network.
That,
So
that's
Frank
that's
and
that's
I are
the
kind of,
that's the way forward. Some sort of a
yeah,
cloud computing approach. Um, the benefit is you don't have to invest in expensive hardware. Some of these clusters are like mad expensive, $500,000 or $1 million for these specialized routers or servers that do number crunching. But a cloud approach where people give you part of their number crunching ability, that would be amazing. I think lots of people would happily join in. Um,
yeah, I think so. And Frank's been helping a lot with that, pulling together a lot of information about that. And I'm talking to some local friends I know in New York who could help me build a server, which we're trying to do for the ARF anyways,
yeah,
is build our own server. So it wouldn't be too much harder to put Filippo's software in this network that way. So I think we're going to try and do both actually. So
beautiful.
yeah, raising some money for that through the archaeologicalrescue.org is my website for the Archaeological Rescue Foundation. But we would yeah, be setting up a systematic program for after he's done with Giza, he's going to scan Hawara. That's the next one, he said. But then another big one is Cusco, the Chincana tunnels we're talking about, because that's a really important project that's happening right now. They're already excavating there, so he could it could also help validate his technology if they discover the tunnels that he shows before they dig them. And it would help them to get a better idea of what's lower. And I expect those tunnels are going to connect, honestly, along the entire western coast of South America. I think they're going to stretch all the way as far as the Inca Trail and more. So those are a couple of the ones he's going to focus on right after Giza. But beyond that, there are so many. I've already got a very long list, but the Archaeological Rescue Foundation, we would try and like give him a updated list that's very well researched, saying, okay, here are the top ones that are most important, the ones that are at risk of damage from looters and black market or natural causes or whatever, wars, and the ones that are most likely to have very significant artifacts and records underneath them, which we've already got a list of sites like that, and people
Beautiful.
are always coming to me with more and more too. So we're going to set it up so people can contribute their own suggestions. If they have a site that they think should be scanned, they can tell us and we'll prioritize it into this list. And Filippo can just start working down this list. And then if he scans these sites and he does find other, structures underground, like he found at Giza, then we can also go in Archaeological Rescue Foundation. We can work on trying to get an on-site remote sensing team so that we can validate and verify and start digging it up and actually trying to access these records underground. So it's a system to basically start
Right.
accessing, recovering, and preserving the most important archaeological records and archives of artifacts on the planet.
So
So it
this
would
this is
lead
such
to
a
a lot
good
more coming use.
good gathering. Let's take advantage of this. Thousands of people are going to be hearing this. So if anybody has technical knowledge, somebody has a company that is related to, let's say, cloud computing, processing power. You use it when you need it, and or maybe they have information on how to increase computational power for the project. Please do help. This is uncovering our legacy, remembering there's nothing like seeing the glory of our magnificent ancestors to give us certainty of our own magnificence. So much perversion and distortion exists that no, humans in the past were dum-dums. We just lived in caves, and that is not true. That could not be further from the truth. And so having this concrete evidence is a way towards our total awakening. Anybody hearing, if you can help, please, please, please do so. And Trevor, what would be the best place for people to find your work, and if they want to help out, to get in touch with you?
Um, well, the archaeologicalrescue.org is for the foundation. And I'm on Facebook, just Trevor Grassi, and YouTube also. My channel is just called Trevor Grassi. So I've got most of my information I put out on YouTube, and there's a lot of information about all this stuff. What we're talking about with like the grid and reprogramming and the technology of pyramids. I've got one video that's really informative about that. It's called the Prosperity Machine on the YouTube channel. That was a presentation I gave at a conference earlier or last year, I mean. And I'm on X as well, but I don't use that quite as much. Facebook, I put out a lot of stuff, so you can find me there. Trevor Grassi, Grassi. Um, yeah, I think we're going to be putting up more and more of the information on the ARF website because I've got a couple pages up there describing the Hawara project. I've got one for the Piedras Negras project that I'm going to publish very soon, probably with a video, the first video I'm going to put out about it. We actually went to Palenque the first day. Second day, we went to Yaxchilan, which is this subterranean labyrinth underneath a pyramid in Mexico. It's on the same river, but it's on the west bank is Mexico. The east
Mhm.
bank is Guatemala. So we got Yaxchilan as well, and then the hours of footage from Piedras Negras. So yeah, that's we went to the cenote there. I can't remember if Frank mentioned this to you or not, but there's the largest cenote of all of in the whole Maya world as far as some are concerned, at least in Guatemala, some people say. But this cenote is it's like you could fit 100 of the cenotes inside this one. It's massive, the sinkhole just going straight down into the earth.
Yeah.
And this is yeah, really connected as well to what we think the records would very likely be down in there. It'd be
Mhm.
tied into this whole underworld of massive spaces underground. I mean,
Oh yes.
this thing is huge and it's
Yeah.
dry at the bottom. There's no water, which means the water is draining down into something even further
Even,
below it.
yep, yep, yep. Well,
Uh,
I mean, we've got subterranean civilizations at different levels of advancement, but these natural and artificial cavities do exist in Earth all around, lots of ancient bases and so on. So this is not a surprise whatsoever. So it would be, as you said, a really good candidate to store some stuff long term, putting it in
yeah.
a deep freeze or long-term storage, waiting for the correct time for Trevor to arrive with the
Well,
team of.
it would be something if we found some like inscribed tablets in
Yeah, yeah.
Guatemala and then we found the same ones at Giza.
Oh yes.
That is one of
Oh
the
my God.
ways it could
Oh
validate
wow.
itself.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that would be pretty amazing. I think we're set to try and get down to the floor of the cenote next year and also bring back the GPR equipment for at the Acropolis and
Yeah.
a few of the pyramids there. There's a couple O13 and K5 or a couple of the structures. That's what they named them. So yeah, it's if we get back there maybe next January or something, that's one of the most exciting things I can possibly be sharing. So I'm just yeah, I'm just like
Looking
so
forward.
excited about it,
I could
thrilled myself.
imagine. I could imagine. Um,
Yeah.
well, you got to come back. You got to be an honored guest once again, or twice again, or 10 times again. You're most welcome. We love you, man. And the
Thank you so
information
much.
is firsthand, um, not published, some of it yet. So thank you for all this wonderful, wonderful wisdom. Um, Now, if you
Yeah.
wanted to give our audience some advice, right? So you're just summing up all that you have seen and all that you have learned and all that you have done. What would be something you would like to share with our wonderful audience?
Well, I think all of this is something that should be a global, universal process. Like, I think everyone should be involved in this. So I would tell people to follow what I'm putting out because I mean, just to be honest, a lot of the stuff I put out, it's stuff that no one else talks about. So it's stuff that I consider to be very important, but that's not out there yet. So getting informed about a lot of this stuff, to be honest, I'm one of the only people talking about a
Yeah,
lot of it. But look into what we're putting out on the Archaeological Rescue Foundation too. These are some of the best leads that we can be taking up in the future and helping get other people aware and contributing ideally if we can get it to some philanthropist. There are definitely people out there who could just drop some money that could get so many of these projects started because just to be honest, it's really no one, there are many people starting to talk about a lot of these things, but there's essentially no one literally trying to set up projects on site to actually get deeper into these spaces. And so that's the idea for the Archaeological Rescue Foundation is we want to have a channel for that to specifically fund people like Marco Vigado, people like Louis de Cordier, people like Filippo Biondi,
yeah,
who are actually bringing us new information that is so useful.
yes,
But I would also tell people to take to heart some of what you're saying trauma, about global events today. David Wilcock, so many of these people that we're losing, people need to pay attention. And I guess, don't look away. Don't be afraid of this sickness, because if we're going to be doctors, if we're going to be healers of the planet, we need to be able to look at this, some of this really disgusting stuff, to be honest, in order to diagnose it and find the cure. So yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of finding the truth here. Look for yourself and recognize that if you can open up this process within yourself and really understand what the ancients were telling us about, I call it the science of enlightenment. That's what it is. It's a systematic process for how to actually work through these stages of growth that bring you to this state where you become like an Edgar Casey, an enlightened being, and you're
Yeah.
actually tapping into this connective uh, system of scalability, moving from the microcosm all the way up to the universal macrocosm, and you're tied in. And this was the whole message of Egypt, that where you're seeking a total balance. The concept of mat is this equilibrium of all the different opposing forces of nature that combine to create this web that's in balance. Um, and it was this process of trying to embody all those forces, all the netters, the neteru, these forces of creation within yourself and balancing yourself out. So yeah, everyone who's putting these pieces together and trying to move forward in terms of personal progression and finding higher states of awareness, that's it's all helping shift the full collective consciousness up higher and higher. So yeah, the more we shine light on this darkness, and the quicker we can move through it towards the next world that will be, I think this is all leading to not just world peace, not just sustainable world peace, but world enlightenment. We're going to reach higher states of being where we're not, being enslaved by finances and big banks and things. We're moving towards a place where everyone's going to actually have this power to be their own creative self, their own, everyone has a genius within them. Everyone is or has a genius. It's just many people never reach that stage of being able to access it within themselves or activate it, because either they don't know it's there or they don't know how to get to it. And it's like you say, we have to get past this traumatized state of survival towards something where we find confidence in ourselves. And so I just want to help everyone find empowerment for themselves, because it's like you say, we're being human beings. I mean, you think you're lucky to be the one sperm that fertilized the egg, you beat out a billion other sperm cells just to become you. But that's not even as significant of a win as just being a human being in general, as opposed to anything else. A human being it's really an honor to be in this life, in this state, because we have unlimited potential. So anyway, I want to thank both of you guys for having me on, because it's been an awesome conversation. And yeah,
Thank you. That was so
been
beautiful.
appreciating it
Thank you
all.
so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Uh, the honor is ours. You're freaking awesome, dude. We love you and
Thank you. Yeah.
wishing you success. You're following your heart, and the universe rewards that. You're authentic. You're the real deal.
Thank you.
Many blessings to you. Wishing for you health and joy and victory and discovery and enlightenment. All the good stuff.
Yeah. Same to
Drago,
both of you.
would you like to close down and add a few words?
Yeah, I just want to add to the fact Trevor's really underutilized with this technology stuff he's bringing forward. He made this for me when he stayed at my house. It was a gift. This
Mhm.
helps me change the fabric of my water and everything I drink. So get on his Etsy. It's Opus Magnum Arts on Etsy.com. contribute to his work. He needs to get to Mexico. He needs to get to Egypt. Like buying a couple of small things. It's like you're not buying gimmick stuff. So you're buying real frequency technology. So
Yes. Yeah.
help support what he's doing, and let's just pay it forward to Trevor and thank him for what he's doing. And maybe part two, we'll get into those discoveries, the videos of you crawling in and out of these tunnels that I've been watching for freaking the last 2 years, man. That's Oh, I can't wait to see that stuff. So I mean,
I got some
yeah.
new ones that. Yeah, I
You're a
got more to
brave
put out like
gentleman.
that.
Oh my
I can't
God.
fit in the tunnels that Trevor's getting in. So I'm like, dude, like for real, there's very small shafts. So I cannot wait to see what you've discovered, man.
Awesome. Yeah, and
Awesome.
there's still I'm seeing there's many more points on my in case we have time for it list. So we got more for if we want to do another interview at some point,
Oh,
even
yes,
now. But by the
please.
end of
Yes,
this year, there'll be more.
yes, please, and thank you. You're
Awesome.
always welcome. We love you. I'm sure the ladies and gentlemen absolutely love you. Please do return. You're always welcome as an esteemed and honored guest with clean, correct, and new information. There's no agenda. These are data points. These are ultimate truths. And so hearing some of this stuff is going to trigger awakening in people. And so that's really our objective also. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we freaking love you. Thank you so much for being here. And to be continued, Trevor, you got to come back. So, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Much love and much
Yeah,
gratitude. Thank you so much.
thank you. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.